one. Very neat looking mushroom. Concealment is not going to be an issue. If I was handrailing that road, I would stay at least 100 yards up the hill there. An old cemetery. That is a bear that's been tearing this pole apart right here.
It's coming down now.
Hello friends, welcome back. I am Jason. I know this area really, really well. I don't generally need a map or a compass to navigate my way around here. But let's say, for example, my buddy JJ and I had planned on meeting in a predetermined location because the SHTF has struck. The zombie apocalypse is upon us. The biker pirates are wandering abroad, wreaking havoc and destruction wherever they may roam. Let's say we need to meet up in a predetermined location and it's on the other side of this mountain, across a couple streams and so forth and so on. How would I get myself there? Well, I would carry some tools, some necessary tools and equipment to supply all of my needs. So let's say it's further than I can get in a day. I might need to spend the night out here like I am tonight. Navigation equipment, basic navigation stuff, and use what's up here. That's the most important. So what I typically do when I'm in this area and I do need some sort of navigational aid, I'll use a GPS just like everybody else does, right? I like to use a real simple one called Gaia, Gaia, and that's just a free app that you can put on your phone. If you haven't checked that out, do so. I think you'll like it, and it does. There's a lot of fancy GPSs out there that do all kinds of sort of things. I tell you what, I've used that one, the free version of that, and I've used it all over the place. Adventure riding in Mexico, in places that people don't go. And it has done a very good job and has seen me through and gotten me where I needed to go and out of where I needed to go. But let's say that GPS failed for whatever reason, you know. The EMP has struck and all cell phone communications and GPSs are no longer working. What would I do? I would use my compass. I'd pull the compass that's out of my pack. I'd pull that thing out and I would use it to navigate my way through the landscape here. And I would use that in conjunction with a map if I've got it. I ran off today and I forgot my map, so I can't show you that. I'm not very prepared apparently. But anyway, I think you guys will understand the gist of what I'm trying to say. I would have this predetermined location that I've discussed with JJ, and I would have that labeled on my map, and I would use my compass to get myself there. Now, I wouldn't walk in a straight line. The terrain here, it's probably hard to tell on camera, but it's very steep, very rugged, and parts of it are extremely thick with vegetation and really, really difficult to get through. If you've ever tried to walk through a rhododendron or laurel thicket, you know what I'm talking about. It's very, very difficult. You're basically going to have to go on your hands and knees and crawl through a lot of places. So walking in a straight line from A to B, while that may be the simplest way to navigate using a map and compass, just pick your bearing, 176 degrees, whatever it is, and just follow that in a straight line. While in theory, that seems like the easiest thing to do. In this terrain, it is very difficult to do that. Not impossible, but really, really hard to walk in a straight line here. So what I would do is I would use my map and my compass and use terrain association to get myself from A to B. Basically, I would walk take the path of least resistance to a waterway or a road or whatever, And then I would use that as a hand line to get myself from A to B. If we're meeting at his house or his buddy's cabin or whatever it is, chances are that's on some sort of path or some sort of river or whatever. And if I can get myself to that, then I know I can find my way to that location. Maybe in this situation, I'm avoiding roads and the path of least resistance because of hostile forces. I mean, whatever, who knows? Who knows what the situation is? People are freaking out and the world is a dangerous place sometimes. So maybe I need to stick to the path of most resistance just to dodge any conflicts that might come my way. But I could still use the rivers. I could still use the roads as handrails. I would just need to keep a further distance from them. And that's really the easiest way to get around. I mean, I almost never use a map and compass. I almost never use any form of navigation when I'm up here. I just use terrain association. I know that I walked this draw, for example. I walked that draw, and when I got to the ridge, I took a left. And then I can count the draws that I walk past, and I can get myself back the direction that I came. Following the streams and rivers and stuff is generally the way to go, and that's how I usually get around. You can use the sun as a navigational beacon. If the sun is on your left-hand shoulder when you're walking in and you need to get back the location you came, put it on your right-hand shoulder. Just having a general sense of direction is important, and just paying attention to your location, to paying attention to your surroundings, knowing which way north, south, east, and west is, general direction. Just having a small little button compass like the one that I keep in my belt has actually gotten me out of not being lost, but turned around. I wasn't quite sure exactly which way I needed to go. I knew I needed to head south to hit the river. I just pulled out that button compass and it got me on the right track. So I can easily access it. I've got a small little button compass so I can confirm my direction of travel. Like I said before, I've used this small little button compass like this one to get myself from A to B, and it works really, really well. I just need to know a rough ballpark direction. I don't necessarily need to find a small little needle in a haystack. But let's say I need to travel basically roughly in a south direction to get to, let's say this is the road. My machete is the road. And I know that over here at the tip of the machete on my map, my improvised map here, is my destination. That's where I need to get to. This road runs basically east-west, you know, for the most part. That direction is east and that direction is west. And I am north of that road right now. So all I really need to do is travel in roughly a south direction to hit this road. And when I hit this road, I can aim, I can turn right and go to that destination that I'm looking for. Now, this would be like aiming off. Now, I could, if I had a better compass than this, I could potentially, and the terrain was a little bit more favorable for it, I could potentially just get a bearing on this point right here and walk directly to it. But chances are that's not going to be the easiest route to walk anyway. It's going to be a really difficult way to walk that direction. So chances are, if I aim off to the left a little bit, I guess that would have been to the west, east a little bit. If I aimed off to the east a little bit, I would hit that road and I could just hang a right and get there. And that's generally speaking how I get around out here for the most part. Maybe it's not always the most efficient. You know, you might, be able to cut off a little bit of distance by walking in a straight line towards that object that you're looking for, but it's been pretty foolproof in my experience. I've almost never been, I shouldn't say I've never been lost. I guess I've been turned around a bit, just like Daniel Boone. I've never been lost, but I've been turned around a bit for a day or two. So now, if I did want to follow roughly a south direction, a path that leads me south, what I would do is I would just use my button compass from time to time, and I would make sure that I'm aiming for a tree that's south. So like, for example, I just looked at my compass and that tree right there is south of my current location. So I just put my compass back in my pocket. I walk to that tree right there. And then when I get there, I can take my compass back out and I can reassess and pick another tree that's in a south direction and just keep walking south, 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 south until I eventually hit that object that I'm searching for. Another thing that I can do is if I do have a compass and a map, I can look at the topographic map And I can determine how many draws there are between me and my destination. I can determine how many ridges. I can determine how many water crossings, that kind of stuff there is. And I can count that stuff off. And then all this information just gives you a better understanding, a better grasp on where you are, and helps you, aids you in navigating to that location that you're trying to get to. So I just crossed a ridge, right? And once I got to this ridge, I would confirm my location on my map. I would assess my compass and continue on my path that I'm trying to go. I know down here in the bottom, because I've been here before, there's a draw. And wherever there's a draw, and the neck of the woods around here, and this neck of the woods, there's gonna be some sort of water source. Looks like an old logging road right here. Definitely a man-made flat path that's been here a long time and not maintained. And these are excellent because it makes it very easy to get around. It's a semi-flat surface to walk on, and I take advantage of these whenever I find them. These almost certainly will never be on a map, so don't look for them. Some of them, I guess, would be if they've been turned into trails of some sort, but for the most part, they will not be on your map. With that said, it's a really good idea to mark these and draw them on your map. That way you can use them in the future. Score a semi-ripe blackberry and some blueberries. This blackberry thicket here is a nasty one. I do not want to go through that. I'd have to hack my way all the way through. That's where a machete really shines, is when you got briars like that you gotta get through and you don't want to get your hands all tore up. You can get some distance and reach out there. That's why this is my preferred tool. If I could only bring one thing with me into these woods, it'd be hard not to bring this. And get a lot done with this thing. And I don't really worry about water. You know, some people say, what about a water filter? If you could only bring one thing. Lots of berries here. Dang. A lot of people say, okay, what about a water filter? Metal containers, all that stuff. You can't make that with a machete. Yeah, I got it. But around here, and I'll show you just a second, I drink the water here all the time without doing anything to it. Spider webs on my face. If you like these in the field type videos, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up for me. It's really helpful. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we will carry on. So here's what I'm talking about, a rhododendron thicket. Almost certainly there's water down there. Almost guaranteed. I think I can hear it actually. But walking through this stuff is a pain in the neck. It's not impossible, but it is a drag. Hacking your way through it is generally not the option that I'm gonna take. I'm just gonna walk around it. And that doesn't take you on a straight path. So you've got to kind of keep track of how far you've gone in a, if I hang a left, let's say I'm traveling south and I hang a left, I need to keep track of how far I go in that direction, so I can make sure I make it up and come back to the right to get back on my path. Otherwise, I'll get too far off. I'm not good with mushrooms. I only know a few edible ones that I can positively identify. If you know this one, this is a cool one. If you know what this is, leave that in the comments and let me know, because I am not sure about that one. Very neat looking mushroom. Pigs have been here, wallowing in the mud. You can see the tracks right there. Like I said, there's water everywhere here. You can't walk very far in one direction without hitting water. They always start at some sort of spring, like probably 200 yards up from this is the spring head, where it just comes straight out of the earth. And I drink it all the time. I drink gallons of water out of this area without filtering it, boiling it, purifying it in any way, and had no issues. That's a slick log. Holy crap. I'm gonna eat it. Yikes. But yeah, so I've drank gallons and gallons of water out of streams and branches and springs like this one right here, and had no issues whatsoever, because I just believe in kind of strengthening myself from the inside out. You know, I don't advise it. I don't suggest to anyone watching that you just go out and start drinking water everywhere. Be very selective. Even if you are going to purify it or boil it or whatever in some way, just be selective of where you choose to get your water. But our ancestors didn't purify their water in any way. They didn't boil everything that they drank. They just drank the dang water. And sometimes they get sick, and sometimes I get sick, you know, not necessarily from the water, but it just happens. I've never been really sick that I know of. I've never had Giardia that I know of or anything like that, and I'm sure I'd be aware of it if I had it. But I do bring a water filter with me, so let's get that out. I do generally carry a water filter with me, such as this Grail water filter right here, because you just don't know where you're going to end up. You might end up in a place where the water is just nasty and contaminated with some sort of filth, and you just don't know. I mean, if I was going to stay in this area right here and I knew I wasn't going anywhere else, then I would just drink whatever. But I like the Grail because it's also my water bottle. And this is the only water container, I guess, besides that metal cup, that I carry, generally speaking, because water, like I said, is just so plentiful in this area. I don't need to carry any, and it's everywhere. You can't help but find it. Only concern with drinking water right here out of this one spot is those pig wallows that I saw up there, upstream of here. So filtering it's probably a good idea, but if I walked this little stream up the couple hundred yards until I found the actual spring head, I would drink right out of that. Best water bottle you can fill up is the one in your belly. This is 16 ounces of water. I'd probably, if I'm at this water source and I don't know when the next one's going to be, I wasn't sure, I would drink at least a couple of these and then fill it up and then head on my way. It's so dang humid. It's not even that hot. It's maybe it's in the 80s probably today, but my goodness, it is hot. You know, people, whenever I say the temperatures in the 80s, people all in the comments always say something like, try 110 out here in Nevada or whatever, 115. Yeah, I get it. That's hot. Yeah, I get it. I've lived in both. But people that say things like that have never been to the South, and 85 degrees in the summer is hot. The humidity is the killer. Go ahead and drink 3 of these. It's a pretty thirsty day. You can see how wet I am. Soaking wet with sweat, and I'm not even pushing it. I'm really taking my time, pacing myself, walking. And that's an important thing when you're by yourself, especially when you're by yourself. Go slow. Don't get super dehydrated. Take your time. Stop and get a drink of water. Rest when you need to. Don't rush it, because if you rush it, the chances of you getting hurt are much, much higher. If you're by yourself back here and I was to break my leg stepping in a hole or something like that, which is super easy to do. I mean, it's really easy to slip, fall, and crack your melon on something. So just take your time, go slow, because if I was to get hurt back here, I'd be in trouble. Obviously, I've let people know where I am and what time I'm supposed to be back, but still, it's not worth it. Maybe hard to tell on camera, but this is some thick jungle. This is basically a rainforest here. This area that I'm in gets, I want to say 7 to 8 feet of rain a year, maybe a little more. It's a lot. And the vegetation here in the summertime is just thick. Well, and this is one of the reasons why I like to travel really light. I don't pack a lot of gear. And in a previous video, yesterday's video, I guess it will be by the time this comes out, I will talk about the gear that I actually carry. So you can watch that if you've missed that one. What have I actually got on me? I like to travel light through areas like this because if you ever try to go through stuff like this with a great big backpack on, with sticking up above you, you know, it's really irritating. It gets hung up on everything. This one, nice and slim and trim. I can duck under stuff, crawl through stuff, and I can find my way through and navigate my way through the jungle here without much trouble. It's a trade-off, it's a compromise. More gear means that you're probably gonna be more comfortable when you get to said location, location X, whatever it is. If I carried a whole huge backpack with 50 pounds of gear, when I finally met up with JJ, I would be much more comfortable. I'd have all the things. But getting there would be very uncomfortable. So it's just a trade-off. You know, I try to find a happy balance, something in the middle. You know, I carry enough equipment where I could be comfortable. I mean, I could do this. I could make a 2-day hike with no gear, with nothing, just walking slick, you know, with a pair of shorts on. I could do it. I prefer to travel light and be just a little bit uncomfortable when I get to the camp. Maybe a little hungry. You know, I don't carry as much food as I probably could or should, maybe, I don't know. I usually only eat about a meal a day when I'm out doing things like this. One meal a day and some snacks. Rain might be a welcome thing if it does rain. I'm already soaking wet. I mean, my clothes are pretty much drenched, about as wet as they get. So it would just be nice maybe to have a little shower, cool me off. I wouldn't even put rain gear on. There's no point. There's 0 point in this environment wearing rain gear. And it's just doesn't make any sense. You're gonna sweat your butt off wearing any kind of rain jacket, poncho, whatever. Just unless you're sitting perfectly still and stationary, there's no point. Just get rained on, get wet. I mean, that's just the way it is. So right now, believe it or not, this is sort of the path of least resistance. So, and I'm hand railing that small stream, that small spring-fed stream that we got our water from. I'm hand railing that. I can hear it off to my right. And as long as I can hear that, I can keep going in that same direction. I know where this stream comes out. I know this stream eventually hits a road. And I know that road leads me to the destination that I'm seeking. This is ridiculous. This is getting out of hand. Yikes. Hard to tell how steep some of the hills are here on camera. It's really tough to tell, but I mean, you're literally, you know, using your hands and billy goating your way up a lot of this stuff. That's why I love it. And I love being off the trail. I hate trail hiking. I don't hate it, I guess. I shouldn't say that. I don't like trail hiking because you see all the same stuff that everybody else sees. This, nobody comes here. Nobody. Get a lot of comments about animals and bugs and stuff and critters and whatnot. When it comes to insects, all I do is wear long sleeves. I don't do anything else. I have used permethrin on my clothes before, but I don't generally like that stuff because it's pretty much poison. You're wearing poison on your body is probably not that good of an idea long term. I guess neither is malaria, but you don't know. Anyway, trade-offs. But I generally don't use bug sprays of any kind. I just wear long sleeves, and when the bugs are really, really bad, I cover myself up head to toe from gloves and bug nets and all that stuff. So that's what I do when mosquitoes are bad. When it comes to ticks, ticks are going to get on you. If you're out here in the warmer months of the year, you're going to get ticks. Just do regular tick checks. That's it. That's all you really can do. They're going to get on you. They're going to get on your head. You're going to find one attached to you from time to time. Just deal with it. You know, it just comes with the territory. You do regular tick checks. Take your hat off, take your clothes off when you're washing down in the evening, you know, doing your bird bath in the creek, whatever it is, and check all the nooks and crannies. And when it comes to bigger animals, I generally don't worry about those too much either. I mean, I've seen a lot of bears, seen a lot of pigs, seen a lot of animals that could potentially hurt me. But generally speaking, what you're gonna see is their backside as they run away from you. That's 99.9% of the time is what's gonna happen. There's gonna be an odd occasion where one might be interested in you, curious in you for whatever reason, and just standing your ground, being prepared for that. I think JJ mentioned this in his last video, but yeah, standing your ground and not looking like something they could possibly eat, not looking like prey, being big, being noisy, making noise. That's the thing too. So it's just like with hunting, right? When you're hunting, you're trying to be quiet and sneaky to sneak up on your prey, but you don't want to sneak up on a bear. That's a bad thing. So it's just something you got to deal with. That's the way it goes. So in this situation, if I was trying to be quiet and keep a low profile to avoid people, I wouldn't be yelling, "Hey bear," every time I go around a corner, you know. I wouldn't be doing that. I just have to keep my head on a swivel and pay attention to my surroundings. I do carry a tool with me to potentially neutralize a threat, whether it be four-legged or two-legged, but let's hope we don't have to use that. Okay, so right there, down there is the road, small gravel road. And that tiny little small gravel road is the one that I was looking for. By heading in that southerly direction, I was able to find this road. And I bared off to the left. And I know because I did that, if I turn right when I hit this road, it's going to take me in the direction that I want. Now, I can make the choice. Are we DEFCON 5? Are we code red? Is it really, really dangerous to walk this road? Is it permissible, semi-permissible? It's all situationally dependent. So I could, again, just like I handrailed this little stream here, I could handrail this road and stay out of sight. I could keep 100 yards away from it like I probably am right now. I could keep 100 yards away from this road and just follow it until I get to my destination and meet up with JJ. Now, as you can see, concealment is not going to be an issue here. I mean, I was probably 10 yards away and there's no chance you could have seen me. Even if I was moving, you probably couldn't see me 10 yards away in this mess. So concealment's generally not going to be an issue as long as you're quiet enough. Now, crossing this road, once we get down there and let's say we wanted to cross the road for whatever reason, one of the best tactics that I've found is actually following the deer trails. Deer, if you ever pay attention, next time you see a deer cross a road, pay attention to where they cross the road. They're very good at picking locations that are the least likely to be seen. So using a deer trail or a game trail of any kind really is generally kind of a good idea when you're talking about crossing a road. And when it comes to navigation, people always want to talk pace count and all that stuff. Yeah, and that works good for open ground, trails, that kind of stuff. Walking through this mess, you're not counting your paces. Like, it's just, I guess you could try, but it's just going to be pretty much pointless to get any kind of accurate reading off of that. You're just going to be doing guesswork. How far do I think that I've traveled? Believe it or not, we are 20 yards from the road. It's thick stuff. Carrying a machete like this, unsheathed in terrain like this, it's important how you carry it. I mean, obviously you could put it in a sheath and just drag it along with you or stick it in your pack or something, but if you're planning on using it, but if you're planning on using it, carrying it safely is an important thing to learn. Carrying it like this, good grief, carrying it like this is a good way to go through the woods, right there with the blade away from you. That seems to work pretty good. Or just carrying it down by your side with the blade facing away from you works pretty good. Or the cradle method, like this, just like if you were cradling a baby, you know, just like that with the blade facing away from you. And I like this method for a lot of reasons, but I like this method because if you were to fall, and reach out to try to stop yourself from falling, the machete just gets thrown away from you. There's the stream that we've been following. And right there, can't really see it, I guess, but there's the road. Jeez. And I'm not, guys, please don't think that I'm, exaggerating this. I'm not walking through the thickest bushes on purpose to make it look cooler. This is just what it looks like everywhere, especially down in the valley bottoms and the draw bottoms. Then you got drainage, you're gonna run into these rhododendrons. The only places that are a little bit clearer and easier to walk are places with really mature big trees and lots of canopy cover. But anyway, we made it to our road. Now I know, because I've scouted this area out a lot, that there's lots of places that I could lay up for the night. I shouldn't say lots of places, but there's places I could potentially lay up for the night that will be better than just sleeping out in the woods. I've got all the equipment I need, the camping gear, basically, that I need to spend the night out, but there's a heck of a good shelter right up here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, I'm gonna walk the road for a little bit just because it's easy. I think you guys get the gist, but if I was handrailing that road, I would stay at least 100 yards up the hill there. And there's no way anybody would ever see me if that's where I was. But I'm gonna head up here and I'm gonna show you a cool spot. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This right here is a deer trail. Hard to tell, I understand, but in person it's a little bit easier to identify. But you can see that there's been animals going up this little hill right here. And they're very smart, because look at that bend in the road. And look at that bend in the road. It's very difficult, unless you're right here in this curve, to see anything crossing right here. Very, very smart. Deer know what they're doing. And if time was of the essence, you could potentially, depending on the situation, use a road like this. This is a very low traveled road. There's never any vehicles on this road, ever. I've never seen anybody on this road. I've been up here a bunch of times. Like 100. I've never seen anybody actually back here. I know people drive it from time to time and it's semi-maintained, but I tell you what, chances of seeing somebody on this road are very minimal. And if it was a vehicle you're worried about, you could hear it coming on a gravel road forever away and just head off down this slope right here. Head off down this slope right here and get behind one of those trees, and you'd be gone in seconds. Listening to your instincts is a big deal. And I think that we've, as modern human civilized folk, we have really neglected that for a long time. But like, for example, my instincts, my intuition told me that something was right up here in the wood line, like keeping an eye on me, right? I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, but I just kind of felt it, right? So I stopped. I waited, I listened, I heard a couple of footsteps, and then I took a couple steps forward towards it, and I spooked a couple of turkeys, right? I flew out of there in a hurry. And I could just feel that there was something up there. And because I'm really making an effort to listen to my instincts, listen to, a lot of you guys watching aren't religious folk. You may or may not go to church, you may or not believe in God, and that's okay. Everybody has their own choices to make in this life. But I feel like God speaks to me, and he speaks to me with a small voice in my head, and he tells me, go left, go right, do this, do that. And when I listen, nothing bad ever happens. When I ignore that small little voice, not every time, but sometimes things go wrong. So listen to your instincts, listen to God, listen to that voice in your head that tells you, stop, look around, listen. Are there eyeballs on you? Sometimes it's just in your head. Maybe you're just paranoid. Sometimes you're not. Up ahead of me is a structure which I'm familiar with. I know what it is. But let's say maybe I didn't. I would definitely want to approach with caution. And depending on what the threat level is, I may want to just avoid like the plague. It just depends. But let's say I wanted to approach this thing. I would make a 360 circle all the way around it, moving very quietly, moving very slowly, listening, looking for activity, checking the road for tracks, recent sign of activity. I can tell there's been nothing on this road for a while, at least not since it last rained. I'm looking at the grass up here. The grass is well maintained, so someone comes up here and maintains it. But during my 360 circle of this building, I realized that there's no one there. It's completely empty. And then I could, if I wanted to, proceed with caution. An old cemetery. And that would be a fantastic place to spend the night. An amazing shelter, unless you're worried about spooks, haunts, and whatnot. So this is a great little structure right here that if it was to come a storm, I could stay out of the elements up here, no problem. Time for a little snack. I always keep granola and some jerky, things of that nature, stuff that you don't have to cook in my pack as snacks for the day. I've got 2 of each, 2 sticks of jerky, 2 granola bars, and I've got 2 meals in my pack. So I'm potentially well-fed, semi-well-fed for 48 hours. Potentially, if I rationed it out a bit more, 72. And after that, I'd start to get pretty dang hungry. So maybe this is my predetermined location, my halfway house. I know I've got to get to my end location, but this is on the way, and I could potentially hunker down here for the evening. Got a couple hours, 2-3 hours till dark. I'm gonna go ahead and make myself something to eat. This is a good reason not to cook where you sleep. That is a bear that's been tearing this pole apart right here, ripping pieces off of it for some reason. Scratching that tree a little bit too, but you can see where he's been standing. Tearing that thing up. His scratching post. Bears are weird, man. I've seen them destroy deer feeders. I've seen them eat gas cans full of gas, tear four-wheeler seats up. I mean, they are destructive things. They just like to mark their turf by tearing things apart, I guess. But anyway, so I'm gonna head off this hilltop right here so I can get down to the water, cook myself something up to eat, bathe a little bit, clean myself up because I'm a sweaty mess, and then probably settle in for the evening. Just tidying up a little bit. Holy crap. Look at all those. Dadgum. That's a lot of mushrooms right there. This is a sourwood tree right here. Little roughage, little greenery. Get yourself some vitamins, minerals. Here's some heel all. Really pretty flower. Not a lot of flowers, petals left on here, but this is called heel all. And it's called that because it heals pretty much everything. Lots of medicinal uses. It's maybe a quarter-mile walk down to the water, but I took all my gear with me because in, this hypothetical situation that we're in, people potentially are not very friendly. And if that location that I'm at should be compromised in some way in the time that I'm gone, I wouldn't want to leave all my gear up there and not be able to return to it. Hopped off the road and I'm following this little stream here, and it would be terribly convenient to camp out down here next to the water so I could have the water I need to drink, cook my food in the morning, make my coffee and all that stuff. But I'm telling you, man, the bugs tonight, mosquitoes will just chew your face off and drive you insane. So heading back up to the hilltop there is going to be a much more comfortable and cooler. It's going to cool off up there for sure. Now we're talking. Here's some water. Nice little swimming hole. Little trout swimming in there. Now, I don't have a stove on me. I could have easily brought a stove with me, but no problem starting a fire in these conditions this time of year. There's no need for a Dakota hole, all that stuff to disguise a fire. I mean, there could be somebody having a fire 100 yards that way, and I have no way you see it. Absolutely no way. Smoke, perhaps you might smell it, that kind of stuff. Sinking in the mud. But really not difficult to disguise a fire in these conditions this time of year. I'm going to build my fire probably right here on this little sandy bank. I'm going to rinse off in the creek, take myself a little bath, and while my water is coming to a boil, I'll be cleaning myself off. In this spot right here, everything that I need to start my fire, all the kindling and even fuel to boil my water, the water itself, and the place to do it is all right here. And that's just efficiency. I'm all about trying to be as efficient as possible. Carry what you need, nothing else. Be choosy with the materials that you use for your fire. Select your locations for camping really wisely so you just save time, save energy. Little Vaseline and cotton ball right there. Always does the trick. Simple and effective. All right, while my water's heating up, fogged you up there, didn't I? Cleaning the camera lens with my underwear. Bet you never seen that before, YouTube. All right, so while my water's boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse off and wash all my nooks and crannies, especially the crannies. You can't ignore the crannies. That's what'll really get you. That's cool. All right, but all jokes aside, hygiene is a very important but very neglected part of survival. If a couple days, no big deal. 3 days, probably not a big deal. But if you let it go longer than that, you don't start cleaning yourself up a little bit, especially if you're hoofing it and dirty, hot and sweaty. You're gonna start getting chafing going on, and then those chafes will potentially get infected with bacteria if you don't start cleaning those crannies like we talked about. Between your toes and all that stuff, make sure you're getting all the stuff, all the little details. Oh yeah, that's boiling. Probably the best way to clean a pot like this after you have it in the fire is just in the creek sand. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better. Sometimes, depending on the kind of wood you're using, like that's pine that I just used, it'll leave this residue. It'll leave that pine resin behind. So just give it a good scratching in the sand, and it usually takes it off. We still got it? Do we still got it? Still got it. Something of significant size just walked maybe 20, 30 yards that way. Not sure exactly what it was, but a larger creature for sure. Comes the rain. All right. This is going to be pretty nice, I think. Nice ambiance. I'm sure. Maybe a little creepy. I've never slept in a cemetery before. Have you? Anybody out there slept in a cemetery? Tell me your story. Why did you do it? What was your experience? Was it peaceful? Or was it spooky? I guess we'll find out. And now, our bed is made. That's about the fastest camp that I've ever set up right there. I'm guessing that I'm probably going to be able to sleep pretty much all night without any cover at all, no blanket, but I've got my big cotton piece of cloth, big cotton sheet basically, and then I've got this bivy bag right here that I can curl up in if I should need to. In case the headless horseman needs to be beheaded again. You never know. Sleeping in a hammock, if you're not used to sleeping in a hammock, it's pretty nice, especially in the summertime. I use a hammock, I'd say probably half the year, give or take. In the cooler months, I'll switch to a ground pad of some sort, and it just seems much warmer to me than trying to do all the things that you have to try to do with under quilts and all that with a hammock in the wintertime. So I just switched to the ground, simpler. But in the summer, oh man, there's nothing better than a hammock. You can get up off of the wet ground, lay underneath your tarp or your shed in this situation, and the air can move underneath you and you can dry you out a little bit. And when you wake up in the morning, you're usually dry. And that's pretty nice. But I mean, I guess it does take a little bit of getting used to. Always sleep diagonally in a hammock. Don't lay straight in it, and because you'll end up sleeping like a banana. You don't want that. If you lay diagonally like I am right now, your body ends up being pretty dang straight. It's not really sagged in the middle at all. As long as you set your hammock up correctly. You don't want your hammock to be taut like a straight line when you set it up. One, it puts extra strain on the hammock and could possibly damage it and tear it, and you'll end up on the ground in the middle of the night. You don't want that. But two, it's just not as comfortable. So have a little swag in your hammock when you set it up, and when you get in there, lay diagonally, and it's so much more comfortable. If the mosquitoes are biting you and you don't have your mosquito net or bug net or whatever, you can just use a sheet like this and cover your face up. And if you keep your hat on, it keeps it off of your face so you can breathe and it's not so stifling. Trust me, I've slept in some very, very buggy places. Could have just stayed up here and had my shower under the roof here, under the overhang, filled up my water canteen. Getting pretty windy. Getting pretty windy up here. I'm gonna move my hammock. Looks like the rain's letting up a little bit, slowing down, getting a little brighter, even though it's getting later. But sitting out here looking at the cemetery, I know at least one of the men that was buried out there, and the cemetery goes back to the 1800s, and the men and women that were buried in the cemetery back then were the first ones in the area that scratched an existence out of here, out of the hillsides, and tamed the wilderness. And I have a lot of respect for those people. I have a ton of respect for our ancestors and what they went through, the gumption that they had, the ingenuity that they must have had. They were brilliant to be able to solve the problems that we would look at today with and just give up before we even start. I think all of those people, that the frontiersmen, the early settlers of these areas, I think, man, they had something. They were made of something different. To me, that's about as impressive as it gets, to show up with your wits, a few tools, and your family, and make it happen. Figure it out. Find a way. No matter how hard it gets, you find a way. I think that is pretty amazing. Stick bug. So cool. If he was actually on a branch, instead of being a dummy on a painted post, you'd never see him. All right, guys, we're all tucked in here. Gonna call it a night. See you tomorrow. So bright. It's 5:30 in the morning and still raining. I think I'm gonna sleep in. Man, it's coming down now. Holy cow. Woo. I'm glad I climbed in the bivy bag. The rain is blowing in here pretty good. I think the storm is pretty much past. About time to get up.
That bivy bag, man. After that storm went through, the first storm, I guess, it got pretty chilly out. I'd say it's probably in the 50s, give or take. All packed up, heading out. Now, in this scenario, I could continue on my way, handrailing the roads and streams and whatever until I made it to my final destination. But scenario's over. I'm going home. But I am gonna get something on my way out. Nice. All right, guys, I'm gonna try to walk my way out of here before it rains on me again. It looks like it might any second now. So I really do appreciate you guys watching. Thumbs up, subscribe, all the things, share the video. I really appreciate that. And I can't wait to see you on the next one.